And the movie opens at a gas station located in the middle of nowhere where a man named Blake was taking a snack break. As he sits down, he hears a sound coming from the woods located next to the gas station. When he looks back, he finds a strange looking creature creeping up toward him. Since the gas station was located in the middle of nowhere, he's familiar with strange creatures in the area. However, just as he approaches the creature, it attacks him and starts stabbing him with its sharp splinters. Meanwhile, a couple drives toward a camping site where they're gonna celebrate their anniversary. Polly reassures her boyfriend Seth that they're gonna have a good time despite him not liking camping. Seth puts up a brave face, knowing that his girlfriend wants to make their camping trip a success. And by the time the two of them arrive at the campsite, they're both tired and want to lie down for the night. However, when they try to set up their camp, they end up breaking the wires, leaving them with no choice but to rent a motel. Even though Polly was disappointed, she doesn't really say anything and quietly packs up their stuff. The two of them then get back in their car and start driving down the highway to hopefully find a motel. At the same time, another couple finds themselves stuck in the middle of nowhere as their car refuses to start back up again. Dennis doesn't really want to call a tow company since he's a wanted criminal, and his girlfriend Lacey is not really much for help since she's just some random drug addict. The two of them want to cross the Mexican border so that Dennis can get away from the authorities and help Lacey get her life back on track. Dennis decides to take matters into his own hands and asks Lacey to stand on the side of the highway. He tells her that she needs to flag down a car so that they can steal it and make their way to the border. Sometime later, Polly and Seth, who were still on the highway, come across a pale young woman and decide to stop their car to help her. Seth warns her that it could be a trap, but Polly was unable to stay back without helping and stops in front of Lacey. Before she can get out of the car to help her, Dennis appears next to her and threatens her with his gun. He tells her to get out, and with both Seth and Polly out of the car, Dennis prepares to kill them so that they can not call for help. However, Lacey begs him not to kill them and insists that they should just take them as hostages. Even though he doesn't really want the extra baggage, Dennis agrees and tells both of them to go back in the car. He then tells Seth to drive, but since he doesn't really know how to, Polly volunteers to drive for them and gets back in the driving seat. With nothing else left to do, Lacey begins to go through Dennis's bags and finds his books inside. She asks him if he's a doctor, to which he replies that he is. And hearing this, Lacey asks him if he can write a prescription for her, and Seth informs her that he's a PhD biology student, so he can't really write a prescription. They sit silent until Polly accidentally runs over an animal that has shown up in the middle of the road. She stops the car immediately and tells Dennis that they have a flat tire. He asks Seth to get a spare tire out, but once again, Seth doesn't really know where Polly has kept the tire and refuses to get out. With no other choice left, Polly goes out of the car and starts changing the tire. And during this time, Lacey asks Seth to accompany her so that she can check out the injured animal. She keeps repeating that she's gonna save Ginger, and even though Seth doesn't know who she is referring to, he doesn't really question her, knowing and seeing just how unstable she is. And also because she has a gun in her hand as well. Lacey insists that Seth should save the creature, but just as he moves his hand closer to touch the spikes, the creature begins to mutate and jerks. This scares the two of them, but it is Lacey who loses it and she starts screaming, and Dennis becomes alerted and gets back in the car with Lacey and Polly. He tells Polly to drive, but she refuses to move until Seth comes back in the car. As soon as Seth gets back, Polly begins driving again, but their car starts to overheat. Dennis instructs Polly to find a gas station where they can refuel and inspect the car, and after some time, they arrive at the same gas station as the one shown at the beginning of the film. While Polly goes inside the convenience store, Lacey tells Dennis that she's gonna go to the toilet, and Dennis didn't really want her to go, knowing that she's just gonna do more drugs. However, he didn't really have a choice when Lacey begins to argue with him. Seth keeps an eye on Lacey, and Dennis goes into the store after Polly. Outside, Lacey finds the toilet and starts lighting up the joint, and when the door of the toilet opens up, to her horror, Blake is lying on the floor covered in blood and spikes. She starts to scream as Blake asks her to kill him, and hearing her screams, Dennis exits the store and asks her what's wrong. Lacey is hysterical as she tries to explain that she's seen a man in the toilet covered in spikes. Dennis thinks that she's high from the joint and gets mad at her for making his life harder. All of a sudden, Blake shows up behind Lacey and attacks her, and this causes her to fall to the ground. And weirdly enough, she immediately breaks her neck and dies. Before Blake can attack Seth, who was also standing nearby, he manages to get inside the store with Polly and Dennis as they lock the door. While Dennis screams for Lacey, who is now locked outside, Polly grabs a phone and begins to dial 911. However, Dennis grabs the phone from her and breaks it, and he then cuts off the telephone wires, scared that the authorities might put him under arrest again. This is when he notices a CCTV camera on the ceiling, and he moves toward a monitor and starts analyzing the footage, and he sees Lacey lift a hand outside. Dennis immediately jumps up and tells Polly that he needs to bring Lacey inside since she is still alive. As soon as he goes outside, Dennis runs toward Lacey and starts to drag her body toward the store. When he reaches the front door, Polly refuses to open the lock, scared that he might end up killing them. Suddenly, Lacey lifts a hand that is now full of spikes and attacks Dennis. As he starts screaming, Seth opens the door and lets him inside, and he then closes the door, catching Lacey's hand in it, severing it from her body. Everyone tries to catch their breath, and Seth moves closer to Lacey's hand to inspect it, and to his surprise, he finds that the hand is metabolizing on its own. He explains that the hand is eating human blood and growing as a result. And seeing this, Polly tells the two men that they need to leave as soon as possible. And just as they were about to leave, Lacey starts banging her head against the window. When Seth notices that Dennis was about to go out and help her again, he tells him that Lacey's no longer alive and he needs to let her go. Polly then calls out to Seth and tells him to find the key to the back door. However, Seth was unable to find the key, and eventually, Dennis tells Polly to use a screwdriver to open the door. Soon, Polly manages to open the door, but before they can head out, they hear footsteps on the roof, and Dennis immediately closes the door again. He announces that whatever's out there killing everyone is apparently on top of them now. At this point, the three of them were extremely scared and wanted to leave. This is when a state trooper arrives at the gas station and points her gun at the group. She tells Dennis that the whole police department is looking for him, and Polly interrupts her and starts screaming that she needs to call for help and get inside her car before she's killed. All of a sudden, something grabs the state trooper and rips her body apart. The three of them watch in horror, and Seth goes to console Polly, who is having a hard time after witnessing the trooper's brutal death. Meanwhile, Dennis notices black lines on his hands and realizes that he's gotten infected. He starts moaning pain, and when Polly asks him if he's okay, he replies that he's only injured his hand. The death of the state trooper makes the group even more motivated to escape, and they try to come up with an escape plan together. Polly and Dennis suggest that they need to light up a fire so that the fire department can help them, and although Seth does not agree with them, he has no choice but to support their plan since he doesn't have any more ideas. As Dennis starts to pour oil out through the back door, Seth hears the dead state trooper's radio go off. He suggests that they should grab the radio and call for help, and he grabs metal hangers and turns them into a long pole that he can use to drag the radio closer to them. Suddenly, the creature jumps down from the roof and manages to get inside the store. The three of them rush to the refrigerator in the back and hide until the creature goes away. Dennis informs Seth that the creature can't see them and it's somehow tracking them. He then starts moaning in pain as his arm begins to twist around. His bones begin to break and splinters appear in his arm. He tells Polly and Seth that they will have to cut off his arm because the infection is only gonna spread further. Polly then grabs a pair of clippers while Seth holds Dennis down and tries to cut his arm off. However, she realizes that the clippers are not sharp enough to completely cut it off. And just then, Seth notices concrete blocks near them and uses one of them to cut off Dennis's arm, causing him to lose consciousness from the pain. When Dennis regains consciousness, Seth tells him that the creature is searching for anything that is warm. When it attacked Lacey, the creature did not go for him because the only thing warmer than him was their car's overheating engine. He comes up with a plan, and sometime later, he lies between between packs of ice to lower his body's temperature. Once his temperature goes considerably down, Polly lights up firecrackers and throws them outside, attracting the creature toward them. This gives Seth the chance to head for the car, but as he gets in, his body starts to regulate his temperature, causing the creature to turn to him. Seth quickly tries to start the car, but is unable to locate the keys. He then tries to use the radio to call for help, but the signals are too weak. And just then, the creature starts attacking the side of the car. When Dennis starts to see this, he lights up another firecracker and throws it near the creature, but it doesn't really help. And then, he lights up several more firecrackers as he was still bleeding from his arm. And the creature rushes toward him, and it follows him inside the store, but one of the firecrackers lands in the oil and the fire begins to spread rapidly. Dennis, who'd gotten injured, tells Polly and Seth to leave since he's already gotten infected. And the movie ends with the couple leaving while Dennis uses the state trooper's shotgun to blow up the gas station, killing both him and the creature.